Hey everyone, welcome back to the Thursday stream. And we are just waiting for our guest. As we mentioned, like we're changing the stream format a bit. So now on Thursdays, we are going to get one of the maintainers talking about their project. Some format. So one of the maintainers will join, and we will get you know, some update from the maintainer on the specific project. And I'm just waiting for Artem. 1 second. Oh, my bad. So it's sending the wrong link. Uh, so he'll be here soon. Sorry, there was some uh, problem or mistake from my side. And yeah, I'll just get you. Mike and Artem is here.
Oh, hello everyone.
Yeah, Artem, really sorry. So I sent you the link before scheduling. So, once we schedule, it changes the link.
Yeah,
Yeah, so that happened. But thanks for joining. How are you?
thank you so much. First of all, it's very nice to meet you. Like, meet you, but still. Thank you for inviting me. It's really great. It's been a while since I talked about my open source. I'm
Uh-huh.
great. Yep.
Cool. Yeah, let's go ahead and give the update about like what's going on. Like if you're building a new project or if you have any update for MSW.
Yeah. So there's a bunch of stuff coming to MSW, and I would love to like walk you through it today.
Hmm.
And I would probably start from the things that are already out.
Hmm.
Actually, quite big things. So
Oh, nice.
about a month, maybe 2 months ago, I finally had the time to rework the library and basically rewrite it internally from scratch, which most people probably don't know, and that's a good thing. It means I succeeded, I didn't break anything. And that rewrite was fundamental to what I want to do with the library. And what it did, it introduced a new architecture, which there's no really any fancy name for
Mhm.
it. I just call it defined network architecture because that's the new API we have. It's still experimental. I think it's under MSW/experimental, but everything internally already runs on that architecture from setup worker to setup server and some ecosystem packages. So the whole point of that was to split the library into these like building blocks that actually make up API mocking. And those blocks were always there in MSW. They were just kind of hard to customize because they never had proper public API around them. They weren't as clearly defined. And so now with this architecture, we now have something called defined network, which allows you to define the network interception. And how do you intercept the network? You need two things. You need the sources for that network, basically the request, what makes a request. And then you need the handlers, your contract, right? In this case, your
Mhm.
mocking contract. And that's exactly how it works now, is that you can define these different sources and provide them to this network interface, and you gain this usual experience of resolving requests against your request handlers that everybody uses and hopefully loves with MSW. And that
Mm.
sources bit is very nice because anything can now become a network source. So historically, things like interceptors were network source. So when we are listening to like client requests in Node.js to fetch and all of that, in the browser, it was the service worker that was the network source, right? It was producing requests. And now we actually have a proper service worker network source that you can extend even if you want to. And the best part is that you can write your own stuff. So, which, for example, what we did in another package that I mentioned a little later, we created network source from a third-party library. So now,
Mhm.
if something is yielding requests, MSW just has to receive that request and it knows what to do with it, regardless who was the initiator for it. Or, for example, you can turn an HAR, the network archive file, so your recording of the network session in the browser, into a network source, right? Just
Mhm.
iterate over it. For every request in the entries, emit the request event, and you will gain the familiar experience. So that was a pretty huge change. And the goal for it was to unlock more customization for both people building ecosystem packages around MSW and also just regular developers using it day to day. So if they want to swap an interceptor, if they want to kind of gain the network from somewhere else, they can pretty much implement it now. Pretty excited about this change. It's already live. It's been for a few months, as I mentioned. And yeah, finally pulled it off. Very happy with it. It looks quite clean and beautiful. And if people are interested, they're more than welcome to go to GitHub and just inspect how it's all written. Maybe even provide some feedback. I'm always grateful.
Nice. Good to know. So, Adam, TypeScript 7 dropped. What does it mean for mock service worker?
This new architecture,
Oh,
well, as I mentioned, it does really unlock proper customization. So if you want to change certain pieces, you basically become more in control over how mocking works. So it's no longer just MSW being this kind of closed box doing whatever it's doing and giving you just a few public APIs. You can now compose mocking in any way you want. So we had the request handler API for years now. You can create your custom handlers. It's not often needed, but it's great to have it if you want a different functionality while still benefiting from everything MSW does. And now we're pushing it one level further by allowing you to define your own sources, as I mentioned. So I believe it's a very straightforward API. You just extend the class, and whenever you want to, you just do this.emit request, and you provided a request. And as long as you do this, as long as you adhere to this contract, MSW will be able to use your source and route it through any handlers you've given it. So that's kind of the whole point of this architecture. And what it brings, like what benefit it brings to us as maintainers, we're able to create more ecosystem packages like first class integrations easier. And that's kind of my segue into another point that I wanted to talk about, which is the ecosystem packages.
yeah. Let's go ahead and talk about it.
Yeah. So historically, I've not been a big fan of like configuring or tailoring MSW to certain frameworks.
Mhm.
That's why you never seen something like, special remix integration or special swelted integration. And that's also the reason why, for example, Next.js is still troublesome because I don't like this kind of coupled integrations. But one thing that I learned throughout the years of maintaining the library is that while I still dislike the like framework specific configs and approaches, what is beneficial to the end developer is just offloading some of the integration complexity and sometimes like just chore from them to me, to the maintainer of the tool. So because MSW is extremely simple to integrate into anywhere. It works in any browser process and in any Node.js process. And if it doesn't, it means the tool you're trying to integrate it with doesn't allow it to do its thing. It doesn't expose you proper entry points, for example, or it obscures your environment, whereas like some frameworks can patch global fetch or remove some globals. Well, obviously, we cannot be responsible for that.
Mm.
But at the same time, it's good to find some middle ground. And what we've been trying to do lately, we created a few ecosystem packages, for example, like MSW/Playwright. So now people can integrate mock service worker into Playwright much easier. They don't have to worry about service workers, and it's just one extra dev dependency, and it just has batteries included. You create a fixture, so it's like it adopts the tool philosophy. In this case, in Playwright is a fixture, so you create a network fixture, and you can use the same APIs like server.use, or probably it's going to be like your fixture name.use, override handlers, and so on. And that's for multiple reasons. For example, in the Playwright situation, like it doesn't work that well with service workers in general. And so it was historically very difficult for people to integrate the MSW browser entry point into Playwright, where you need to generate a service worker and then register it, activate it during a test run. So preferably somewhere at the beginning, so it just every test can reuse the same worker instance. But as I mentioned, there are some difficulties. I believe the service worker API itself sometimes comes at odds with how Playwright intercepts a network on its own by using
Mhm.
their API like route, page.route. So because of those conflicts, there were a lot of discussions, and eventually I decided, hey, this is nice and fine and whatever people want to do with their own frameworks, but my users don't have to pay this kind of price, the experience debt sort of for trying to figure these things out. So I just decided, hey, let's just pull it all backstage. And this is where things like the defined network architecture comes in. So now Playwright and its interception algorithm becomes the source for MSW. And MSW just provides the nice UX because, well, I think it's really cool. And I feel like, okay, we're just going to have a compromise and we're going to use a different source of the network. In this case, it's the Playwright's browser level interception, I believe on the Chrome Developer Tools protocol one. And that's been pretty cool. We also were able to route it through their WebSocket interception.
Mhm.
And I believe it's mostly compromise free. So anybody can also check it out on GitHub because it's, as always, free and open source and use it. I know people like it already. And then one other thing we did recently was in collaboration with Cloudflare, we created MSW/Cloudflare, which is a first party integration for testing your workers or just generally anything in workerd environment, where again this customization, this ability to swap interceptors and build things on top really came in handy because that's obviously a different environment, and we had to accommodate for all its specifics when it comes to how it performs requests, how it expects responses, how it handles WebSocket connections, and so forth. And that's exactly what this integration package encapsulates. So we have all that logic there. And now it's a first class integration for anybody who wants to test their Cloudflare workers with MSW experience and all the benefits and the features. So it's been really cool. I'm very grateful for Cloudflare for reaching out, for making this happen. And there's just a few days ago, actually, we finally published the SvelteKit integration. So there's now MSW/SvelteKit. That's also a thing, which is just a dev experience layer on top. So developers who are building with SvelteKit already familiar with their plugin ecosystem, and now you can pull MSW there, and it will ask you a few prompts in the terminal, like where do you want to use MSW in the browser, in Node.js, and it will automatically create the integration points and set it up for you out of the box, which is pretty cool. I was just a little bit involved with this, so the majority of the work was done by Paolo from the SvelteKit team, from the Svelte team. And it's been amazing. I'm very happy to see this kind of initiatives, just kind of blending UX. It's not even about configuring tools because MSW integrates with Svelte amazingly. I still remember that pull request I did a few years ago when I was revamping the examples. And the
Mhm.
Svelte one was one of the easiest one to do. Literally like 2 files, you put integration here and here, it works. I loved it. And it still works today, but this like extra kind of familiarity, so it feels like the part of your ecosystem. I think this is exactly the fit where these integration packages come in. So I'm very grateful that Paolo and hopefully more and more contributors will make it better. And now people can benefit from MSW in their SvelteKit projects. Pretty cool.
It's nice. I met Paolo recently at React Summit as well. So yeah, a nice guy.
I wish I could go, but maybe one day.
Maybe next time. But yeah, this looks cool. So I remember like using not me writing, but one of my colleague who actually wrote an MSW integration back in 2022. That was the first time I heard about this project actually. No offense. I mean, I haven't written a lot of tests in my lifetime, so and then I was like surprised. Oh wow, this looks really cool. I mean, we were able to verify everything without like relying on actual server.
Yeah,
Uh, Even new implementation. So we were just mocking the data. We know that this is the contract. This is how it will look like. We know the shape. So let's go
yeah.
ahead and start creating the UI. So it was very useful for like what you call TDD, so like
Mhm.
test-driven development as well, where you can actually don't have actual server, but the shape of your contract. You can still go ahead and write your code and have actual UIs functionally function, which is actually working. So it was cool.
Yeah. Thank you. It's been a long time ago. Like you didn't have to apologize for like 2022 or something, 24.
Yeah. So, but yeah, and then nice. So now we are getting TypeScript 7. So are you planning to now? migrate to TypeScript 7 and see like how it works, or you're just
Oh,
holding sometime?
yeah, it's like I'll be honest, TypeScript and Node.js move way faster than I move. So it's like I'm still preparing like TypeScript 6 and it's already TypeScript 7. I definitely want to explore the new versions. Hopefully, there are not that many changes that would break consumers because despite what people believe, we did experience breaking changes in types that were
Uh,
then fixed. So we had a situations like, everything works nice on, for example, 4.4, then 4.5 decided to break how certain types are evaluated, and then 4.7 fixed that. But we cannot afford a broken version, so now we need to like introduce some sort of common type that would work everywhere, even if it comes at the expense of sacrificing certain TypeScript features. So I hope that I will just expand the matrix of TypeScript versions to like 7.0 and it will be green. That's something for me to see. So for now, I think we're focusing on supporting everything up to 7.0. I think it literally released a few days ago, as far as I can tell. And then we can just bump it. It's usually not a breaking change. It's hopefully, again, I need to see what it does. But usually type support should be pretty straightforward. We go through the route of like deprecating older versions if we want to
mhm.
introduce new versions. So like if we add support for 7.0, we will drop some previous version, like I don't know, 5.0, like as
Yeah,
an example.
makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nice. That's good. Any new project you're working on?
New projects. That's an interesting question. Like in terms of open source, I think I'm mostly focusing on MSW. There's quite a lot of things still to do. Uh, there's one actually pretty cool ongoing work that's still like in progress in MSW. I can tell you about it as well. Um, but in terms of new projects, I don't really have anything new open source wise. I think, unless I terribly forgotten about something. I do like some patch projects on the side, but they're not open source, so that's probably kind of out of context for today. But there's one interesting thing in MSW, which honestly to me was always a separate project, which is Interceptors library. This is how MSW works in Node.js. And it's one of my most favorite projects, extremely difficult technically. It requires insane level of knowledge of Node.js, which I still don't have, but I'm trying to figure out and pull the strings as I go. And what's really exciting about this particular change that I want to talk about is that it finally solves network interception in OGS, like solves it, not just provides the way to listen to when requests happen. It just goes the lowest way possible. Like literally the next level is the C bindings. We cannot go there. That would require you to rebuild node binaries to have interception. So we go just one layer higher, and that is the like net module based interception. So whenever an OGS process creates a network connection through net.connect or net.create connection, which is any network connection, MSW will be able to observe that connection now. That is a huge change, internally at least, quite difficult, but I think we pulled it through. I already have a bunch of tests passing, and the main functionality is there, and it's just some edge cases remaining, but it finally became not just proof of concept, but a working prototype. And I hope we're gonna roll it out later this year. I'm very grateful to Michael. Huge shout out to Michael for helping me with this and generally with maintaining the library and many libraries really around. Yeah, this change is amazing because now we'll be able to tap into the network on the socket level, which is protocol agnostic. It doesn't care what you transmit. You are able to listen to the data packets and pipe them through different parsers. So for example, to implement the backward compatibility, so to keep the way MSW works now, we will tap into the socket and we will route the packets through the HTTP parser. So we will do a quick header check. If it looks like HTTP request, we'll route it through the parser, which is the actual parser Node.js uses, because that is not a good idea to build your own parser. We'll be using LLHTTP. And this way, we'll be able to do this kind of protocol agnostic interception, if you would. And one thing that really excites me is that now we'll be able to support more things. So things like SMTP, for example, that's totally possible. It's a question of routing the socket data through the SMTP parser, and you can build a nice API, nice public API on top for people to use. So if you want to mock email being sent or received or something, like we can now be able to do that because architecture wise, the pieces will be there. And yeah, this is probably the most exciting project for this year for MSW. And yeah, I hope that we will test it thoroughly and we'll release it later this year.
Right. So, last question from my side: how people can help, like help you with this project?
This is a kind of interesting world we are right now because I did have to lock up the pull requests on major repos right now because there's been a lot of spam. Luckily, like MSW wasn't as gravely affected as some other projects, but still, I found that like it was too much for me personally. Like we don't still MSW doesn't have a huge team. It's mostly me maintaining it actively, and then a few other contributors who are really great and they add contributions as they go whenever they have time and things like this. So right now, probably the best way to support MSW, and it's always been one of the best ways. Just share your feedback, open issues, open discussions, ask things if you unsure. Very often, there are already dozens of questions answered on the GitHub repo. So look into that. Maybe if you have some ideas, you can always propose them. Something you should definitely not do is just feed MSW into your agent and let it print a 1,000 list long way to improve MSW. That's just a lot of cognitive overload for me, for any other maintainer. Don't do that. Use the tool, explore the tool, see the things you like, dislike, ask questions, ask how would you approach certain situations that you face at work, at hobby projects. And that's a great way. And of course, if you're using MSW in your company for business, consider supporting, consider becoming a sponsor. It always helps. I do have a lot of work, which you already heard about today. And yes, financial support definitely helps me focus on that work more often and more thoroughly so it actually gets released faster. And speaking of that, one more thing that I want to mention, which is MSW 3.0. That's also been in development. There are already a couple of major pull requests merged. I just wrote about this on Twitter the other day so people can follow the progress on GitHub. And this is a really exciting release. I don't anticipate a lot of fundamentally new things. I want to focus on ecosystem support. I want to trim down the dependency graph. I want to migrate finally to ESM only, fix that notorious GraphQL pure dependency issue where it just bites certain people because it was very difficult to introduce this API, but now we're going to have a standalone export path for GraphQL users. It's not going to leak into any other code you use, so it's going to be much easier for you to benefit from GraphQL integration when you already use GraphQL in your project. So very exciting things, a bunch of internal improvements too. I also get help from a bunch of people to improve how MSW is built, how it's developed, maybe like polish some rough corners and stuff usually don't have enough time to or attention to pay. So that's very exciting. I hope it also comes out later this year. At least right now, I'm fully dedicating like July to open source, so I want to focus on these little tasks, and then we'll see how it goes.
So, thank you. That's it from my side. So, thank you for joining, Artem, and
Thank you so
have a
much.
great rest of the day and the rest of the week.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me. It's been great. Thank you. Yeah, see
Bye
you around.
bye. So, hey everyone. Yeah, so that was the update from our maintainers, and now we will continue for a few minutes before I wrap up because I need to leave. As I mentioned on the stream, we have TypeScript 7, which is released. So just go ahead and give it a try. As per the team or the release note I went so far, it's the only thing which is missing right now is the API support. So they haven't exposed the API, but some benchmarks looks really amazing. I mean, VS Code reduced their build time from 125 seconds, 125, yeah, 125 seconds to 10 seconds, which is like amazing. Sentry was there. I really saw a funny tweet from David, who is the founder of Sentry, and he was like, "Oh, should I feel ashamed or should I feel like uh, good that Sentry was mentioned?" But yeah, so it's there. Sentry, Blue Sky, uh, and thanks, Artem. I'll be there in a few seconds. And then the only thing which is missing right now is the API support. So they don't have the API exposed. So in case you're using TypeScript APIs directly, I think need to maybe wait for some time. And TypeScript and embedded language. Yeah, so it's actually mentions like for example, Vue, MDX, Astro, Svelte, and others will not likely we'll be able to leverage TypeScript 7 currently. So yeah, it's an ongoing work. I would say it will take some time. And the next stuff is weekly five. So weekly five, the newsletter which I write. So we covered few amazing projects this week. Uh, so go ahead and explore them. I think the one which you might have used in past or you must use it in case uh, you want to actually have some documentation with some design is yeah. So so it's Mermaid JS. I'm sure like everyone knows about Mermaid JS. So go ahead and give it a try. So Mermaid is a project we recommend. You can just use it inside GitHub as well. It supports Mermaid, and they have Mermaid.live. They have their live editor. So they have AI diagram generation, visual drag and drop. So you can use a free trial or just stay on Mermaid.live, and you can just have your code here and see how it looks like. So go ahead and give it a try. So in case you want to create some diagrams, embed it, Mermaid is the way to go. And that's my recommendation for this week. But there are some other projects here as well. Uh, you can explore them once you have time. And if you get some time, just go ahead and subscribe to the newsletter. So that's it for the day. And we will be back next Wednesday. And we will be back on Thursday again with another maintainer talking about their project. So thank you everyone for joining and have a great rest of the day. And